Well, this is resource management role play. This is an activity in which we will have students act as natural resource managers for a variety of natural resources, and we will simulate how they work together. We will be using water, timber, wildlife, and recreation. The objectives for this activity are to identify natural resources. After the students identify them, they will evaluate the pros and cons of each of the different land use decisions that they will have to make. They will also problem solve and compromise with others to meet a variety of management needs. And last, they'll understand the difficulties involved in developing an integrated resource management plan. To begin this lesson, you want to congratulate your students on getting a position as a natural resource manager. That they will have the opportunity to put their skills to use in a simulated activity. We will be challenging them to find ways to meet needs required from them for their separate land use areas. And those areas are water, timber, recreation, and wildlife. Also tell the students that SWES staff will be acting as a town board of supervisors. They will be the team that will be deciding how well they've done in terms of making management decisions for this property. They will be in front of them. The students will have to face them and actually present. They will have to make their case persuasive as they try to make decisions for this use of land. So what we have to do is separate the students into 4 groups of the timber, water, recreation, and wildlife. And these are the materials that we give them before we start the activity. Each resource has its own distinct set of instructions for wildlife, for water, and timber. Each one is specific to what decisions they would have to make as either recreation, wildlife, water, or timber managers. There are specific instructions on what they're supposed to do. Once the group of students, or the natural resource managers, say for recreation, have made up their plan, they're to present it to the group. There's a pink sheet which is a presentation outline which shows what they're supposed to do. They come up and lay their sheet up and they explain the resource management decisions that they made. Once all 4 groups have presented their proposals, we take all 4 that they've presented and put them together. And we start to look at where there's conflict, where there's multiple uses, multiple reasons for use, either clear cuts or use in other areas, and start to talk about why they made the decisions in those areas. We want to look at what's the important factors that are involved within the overall picture, and then we want to give them some more time to come up with compromises, figures out ways that the groups can work together as resource managers for the better picture of the whole thing, instead of just their narrow focus and how they can work together. So once the group has met, the 4 groups have met, and they've either reached compromises or not, it's important to go over some of the group work in terms of how they felt their compromise took place. What if they were satisfied with their original plan, how much they had to change it, what steps they had to do to make the changes, and what the overall satisfaction was as a group. It's also important at this time to look at some of the stakeholders that were left out of this activity. On the map, there are houses, there are property owners in the nearby area, there's the greater public as well that are using the lake and the water. And so these are all stakeholders that we need to make sure that the students understand that they will be representing as resource managers. Another part of the conclusion of this activity is to talk about natural resource careers. Careers that they've actually had a little taste of in terms of having to think about what they need to do. There are many careers that we can talk about, as well as, or like forestry, wildlife management, wildlife biologists. We can do just general resource management, or even any other public office that's dealing with property and land values. To recap the objectives, we want the students to be able to identify natural resources. We want them to be able to evaluate the pros and cons of the land use management decisions. We want them to problem solve and compromise regarding the management needs of the property. We also want them to understand the difficulties involved in developing an integrated land use management plan.